Welcome, welcome, welcome. Coffee and Sports, the morning show on a Wednesday morning, Mo. I am Chris, and this is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing well. Ready to talk coffee and sports on Hump Day.
Hump day. Mo, it was cut day. It was cut day around the league in the NFL yesterday, and we're going to get to some of the cut day highlights. But before we do that, let's touch on some other quick highlights around the world of sports. And it was chaos with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim yesterday as they put a quarter of their roster onto waivers. We're not going to get too much into that today. Hopefully, we'll have JG on with us tomorrow morning to break down. I don't know what they're doing, Mo. I don't know what the Angels are doing. I'm not going to pretend that I know what the Angels are doing, but they got some things. They got some things going on. Also making headlines in the NFL yesterday, Mo, kickers being traded. I don't think in my 30-plus years of life I've ever seen a day where multiple kickers have been traded in the same day. So good for kickers being traded yesterday. In the world of world basketball, I guess you want to say, the Team USA is rolling. Mo, they are rolling right along, as expected. So Team USA is doing their thing. And Mo, let's start the show off today. It's a little disappointing. I'm a little sad this morning. And no, it's not because of the Yankees, which, by the way, Mo, the Yankees won 2 games in a row for the
Feeling
first
good,
time
huh?
for
Feeling
the
pretty
first
good.
time since the beginning of August. And I have to look at this, Mo, and be like, is this what it feels like to be a Tiger fan?
That's
or
wrong.
or a Royals fan? Like, I don't know. Like, I legitimately, Mo, I'm sitting here last night. I'm not watching the game. It's on in the background, and they won like 4-0 or something. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, hey, we won 2. All right, we could be starting something here. And then I'm like, Chris, shut up. This team is. Don't say those. This is a terrible team. But I guess this is what it feels like to be a Royals fan. I I don't know. I don't know, Mo. I'm just
I,
saying.
I can relate. I can remember a few years when the Lakers were struggling, and I thought, I've become a Clipper fan. This is what it's like to be a Clipper fan.
It's
Painful.
it's
Very
a
painful.
it's a rough existence. But Mo, as a Dolphin fan, yesterday was supposed to be the day that the Miami Dolphins made the big trade, the big swing for Jonathan Taylor. Unfortunately, if you're a Dolphin fan, or maybe it is fortunately, we'll get to that in a second. But it did not happen. Jonathan Taylor remains an Indianapolis Colt as of this morning, and at least, Mo, for the next month, because he is still a Colt, he has been put onto the PUP list, which means that he will not be playing for the first 4 games of the season. So he will not be making his NFL debut potentially until the 5th week of the season, depending on what the Colts do with him once week 5 comes around. But getting into it, the Dolphins, Mo, were in it right until the end. The Dolphins actually made multiple offers to the Colts for him, but the Colts went on record as saying they did not receive an offer that was fair market value. So, Mo, let me ask you this. You don't want to pay your running back. You acknowledge that he is not worth 10, 12, $15 million. And we think that JT wants somewhere in the 12 to 16 range. We think that's kind of where he wants to end up. If you look at the top 3 or 4 running back contracts in the NFL, he's going to be somewhere in the 12 to 16 range if he's going to get that kind of money. So we assume that's where he wants to be. The Colts have drawn a line in the sand. We are not paying that. He is not worth that in our mind. We are not going to give him that money. So, Mo, I have to ask the logical question. You're telling the world he's not worth 12 to 16 million, but then apparently you want a haul for him if you're going to trade him, because it originally came out that they wanted a first-round draft pick, and everyone was kind of like, well, that seems a little high. But now, and Miami hasn't come out and said anything as far as what specifically they asked for, but the comments that have come out of Miami makes it seem like it was more than just a first-round pick. The first-round pick was the opening point for the discussion, but apparently it was more than that. So, Mo, how is it that you can say he's not worth top running back money or really top money at all, but then you expect the team to come out and give up major assets for him when that team knows that if they do trade for him, they're also going to have to pay him.
Right.
In all fairness to JT, he's made it clear he wants to get paid. So any team that's going to trade for him at least is aware of the fact that they need to pay him. So now you need a team to give up a first-round pick, maybe a second or a third, and pay him. What world is that logical in, Mo?
It's probably logical in the world of Jim Irsay, because I don't think Jim Irsay was really dealing fairly. I don't think he was genuine in his pursuit to make this trade happen. I'm still going to hold true to the fact that I believe Jim Irsay had no intentions of moving Jonathan Taylor. So what do you do when you don't really want to move somebody? You ask for the moon and the stars. You ask for a deal that you know any team with a good front office is not going to make. They're not going to make it. And I think Miami did everything possible, maybe even offered up more than they had planned to. And the Colts still turned around and said no to moving a player that they don't value. That's Jim Irsay saying, "No, I think I'm going to keep you here for a while longer. We might trade you after you come off the PUP list, or we might sit you some more, but he's in no rush to move Jonathan Taylor." I really believe Jim Irsay, he's doing this strictly based on spite.
Well, Mo, Jonathan Taylor has updated his Twitter account. He is now I'm sure he always was this, but now he is promoting the fact that he is a proud pizza franchisee. So he is really getting on the grind in the pizza franchisee business. So I wish him all the luck for the next month as he delves elbow deep into the pizza business. And in this economy, Mo, the pizza business in this economy is a grind. I'm just saying. So that man's got his work cut out for him.
Especially if you're just coming out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So, Mo, what a show we have lined up this morning. We got Will coming on the show in a little bit. We got Jory coming on the show in a hot second to talk some basketball with us. So, Mo, speaking of basketball, we talked about this a couple days ago. And Giannis said some things about how he wants the Milwaukee Bucks to kind of prove that they are in the winning mentality if he is going to stay a Milwaukee Buck, for the long term. And we're about to bring Jory on the show right now to discuss Giannis a little bit. But Mo, we talked a couple days ago saying, shouldn't he already know kind of what the Milwaukee Bucks mindset is, or what their mojo is there? But Mo, he came out yesterday with some more in-depth comments, and we're going to discuss those now with Jory. So let's bring Jory on the show real quick.
Good morning. Good morning.
Jory, how are you?
Jory.
I'm good. How about yourselves?
Doing well.
Hey, we're hanging in there. So, Jory, Giannis comes out yesterday. It's a long quote. Let me read it for you because I want us to really kind of delve into this. So, Giannis says, "There will never be hard feelings with the Milwaukee Bucks. I believe that we've had 10 unbelievable years, and there's no doubt I gave everything for the city of Milwaukee." Sounds like he's already leaving. "Everything. Every single night, even when I'm hurt, I am a Milwaukee Buck. I bleed green. I know this. This is my team, and it's going to be forever my team. I don't forget people that were there for me and allowed me to be great and to showcase who I am to the world and gave me the platform. But we have to win another one. At the end of the day, being a winner, winning a championship comes first. I don't want to be 20 years on the same team and don't win another championship." Jory, is he saying goodbye? Like, what is this?
Confusing, because the first few lines you read sounded like, oh, he's finna ask for a trade. He's finna want out. That's exactly what that sounded like. And then he said, "I want to be here for forever." I'm like, you're contradicting yourself here. You're contradicting yourself.
What, Mo?
Like, are you trying? My thing is, are you trying to tell the Milwaukee Bucks that I want to win another championship or I might leave? Is that what you're trying to say? Because with that little farewell bit at the beginning, and then the rest of him pouring his heart out, like he does, he knows what Milwaukee will do. Get the old aging veterans to put around him. He knows that. So him saying all of this is just like, to me, it's like, if we don't win another championship within the next few years, I'm out. That's what it sounds like to me, personally. He did it in the most melodramatic way possible.
He did.
I mean, talk about a soliloquy. Like, Jesus Christ. Are we playing basketball or are we writing a play?
Mo, how can you not take it that way? I mean, he literally opens up, and this was a quote. This is via the New York Times. So I don't know what he was asked about going into this. I don't know the setup for this quote, but he literally is like he's giving a goodbye speech to the city of Milwaukee when it was just a few days ago where he was like, if they're building a contender, I'll stay. If they're not building a contender, I might not stay. But now he's thanking everyone. He's bleeding green. He's a Buck forever. What's happening here, Mo?
He realizes, and his team and his PR team realizes those earlier comments about, I need to know that they're all in and that they're committed to me, and that's when I'll resign. But I'm not going to resign unless everybody is on the same page as I am. That's just double talk for I want to be traded. That's just double talk because, like I said, look at their roster, top to bottom. Of their core players, Lopez 34, Drew Holiday 32, Chris Middleton 31, even Pat Connaughton, an important role player, is 30, and no top free agent ever goes to Milwaukee. Even with a Giannis, they're not going to Milwaukee. So what are you left with? Because you're not good. You're not good enough in the sense to win it. I think they could win and compete now, but this team isn't built for the future. It's built for right now. They're not going to be bad enough in the draft to get a high draft pick. That's a harsh reality. So to me, Giannis is trying to have it both ways. I love Milwaukee, but if I leave, it's because management didn't do everything I needed them to do to set me up for success. And yet they fired Mike Budenholzer, and that move doesn't get made without Giannis's approval. And then they turned around and hired the coach that Giannis endorsed. So clearly they're doing whatever they can to please Giannis. At some point, Giannis and his team took a really good look at the roster and they realized, bro, in the next couple of years, it's just going to be you. It's just going to be you, and there'll be no help coming. And I really think, to me, everything he's doing, everything he's saying, and he's doing it in a long way because he wants to look like the good guy. He doesn't want to look like Dame Lillard, and yet at the same time, he's going to ask out. Not this year, but I guarantee you, whatever happens next offseason, he's going to be talking about, I want out.
And I appreciate people like Giannis, because Giannis is a little bit more honest than a lot of these NBA stars, because he'll tell you exactly how he's feeling or what he's thinking. But sometimes you just need to hush. This was one of those times where you didn't need to go on that big old spiel, because you're double, like what Mo said, you're double talking, because you just said last week the absolute opposite.
And Joey, to your point, like, isn't sometimes less is more? Because once you come out and you put it into the air, if we're not trying to win, I don't want to be here. That says it all.
It's out there.
That says to your fans, if this team stays old or they move players and don't bring in talent, Giannis is going to be unhappy and he's not going to want to be here. So you already said that. You already put that into the air. And I get it. You know, you didn't put it out there in a way that necessarily made you look great. You didn't look bad. You just looked honest. You went out there and said, hey, I want to win. If this team isn't about winning, I don't know if I want to be here. And to Mo's point, when those comments initially came out, his response was, he's saying that because he's going to want to move. He's eventually going to want to move because Mo looks at it and he's like, no one's coming to Milwaukee. No one's knocking down Milwaukee's door to sign there, even though Giannis is there. We know that. And if you look at the roster, this roster it's old. This roster is not built to win a championship, maybe this season. But if they don't find a way to do it this season as potentially an underdog, they're not going to do it the next couple seasons. But it's fine. Giannis, come out, say how you feel. We're good to go. But now, Jory, he comes out, and like you said, like he's Dame, but he's Dame times 10 because he's trying so hard to get people to like him here. And he's trying so hard to be the guy that just loves the city and loves the fans, and he's so grateful. But at the end, he's like, but maybe I don't want to be here. So why? Why go through all that just at the end to say what you already said, Jory? You already know what you said.
You already know you said if they don't put some pieces around me that aren't 35 and touching 40 and give me a young star, I'm out. He already said that. So why are you saying, oh, I bleed blue and I bleed green? No, you don't. No, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't have said that in the first place.
I love Giannis, but he's trying to thread a very thin needle, right? He's trying to thread a very, very thin needle. He wants to look assertive and say, I need things to be a certain way for me to stay, but he doesn't want to look like Dame, where he's like, I haven't won here, so this is where I want to go. I'm ready to leave. He still want to look. It goes to show you, Giannis is known as a good guy. Once you want out, once you demand a trade, it's hard to always look like the good guy. And now he's trying to thread that needle and be like, I want out, but I love everything we've done over the last 10 years. And without saying it, because he never mentions names, he is calling out his teammates. He really is calling out his teammates. He's not saying it so much, but if you know basketball, if you know their situation, if you know their roster construction, he's saying I need better teammates.
So let's pivot to this. We're still going to stay in the realm of basketball. I know, and we've all had these conversations. We all have our lists. We all have the greatest NBA players that we like, and everyone makes their list differently. But let me present this question to both of you, because I saw a stat this morning, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit, and it made me ask this question. The question is this: when we talk about the greatest basketball players of all time, regardless of what your criteria is, on some level, are we all being ridiculously disrespectful to Wilt Chamberlain? And I asked this question for this reason. I saw a stat this morning that it put up a list of players, and the list was the most consecutive games averaging 40 points throughout their NBA career. And here's the list. It was the top 5 list. Number 5 was James Harden with 20. Number 4 was Rick Barry with 22. Number 3 was Kobe Bryant with 23. Number 2 was Elgin Baylor with 33. And then number 1 was Wilt Chamberlain with 515. Mo, how can a man who averaged 40 plus points, 515 games in a row, how can a man like that be consistently overlooked today when people are talking about their greatest player? Is it because we didn't see him play? Is it because the game has changed? I mean, he did this in an era where there wasn't a 3-ball. I mean, the 3-ball is so prolific in today's game. You can argue that a player getting up to 40 is more common because the 3-ball helps you do that. But he didn't do that in a time where that was a part of his game or a part of the game in general. So I guess, Mo, let's start the conversation off with just your kind of take of why isn't he viewed maybe as high as others think he should be based on his stats?
So let's start here. I'm older than either of you. And so I've seen basketball further back, and I never saw Wilt Chamberlain play. Like, that's how far back he goes. Only thing I know about Wilt Chamberlain, the numbers are staggering. I think if you've ever seen his numbers, even today, they're staggering. But I never saw him play. I've only seen the highlights. And when you look at what some of today's players and today's analysts say about him, they don't help the case. They don't honor him. They say things like, look who he played against. He was playing against plumbers. So they diminish him. They attack him for saying he had a lack of competition. I would push back and go, he was playing in his era. There were great players in that era. It just so happened that as an individual talent, he was by far the greatest, the most dominant. Now we can apples and oranges between him and Bill Russell. He was better than Bill Russell. Bill Russell was a greater leader, played on a greater team. The Celtics, Russell Celtics, you hear the word stacked squads a lot. Russell Celtics is the most stacked squad in the history of basketball. When you've got guys coming off your bench that are Hall of Famers, that's a stacked squad. Everybody on those, Hondo was a six-man, and he went to the Hall of Fame. Like, Don Nelson is in the Hall of Fame. I only knew Don Nelson as a coach, but apparently he was a Hall of Fame player with the Celtics in the 60s. Who knew? So I'm just saying, I think Wilt Chamberlain is underappreciated. We all do our top 10s. A lot of people don't even have them in the top 10. And to be fair, I have to look at Wilt Chamberlain. I have to look at Bill Russell. And when I make a top 10, because we're in a different era, and with respect to today's players, most of us know Steph is a top 10 player. Steph has jumped into the top 10. And before it's all said and done, I think somebody else from today will join him. And then eventually there'll be another person, which means if three come in, three got to come out. I don't have Wilt Chamberlain in my top 10. I honestly don't. Not because I don't know how great he is, but we're talking about the greatest of the great. He is the greatest statistical player I've ever seen in terms of numbers, but I didn't actually see him. And for me, I guess that might hurt him with me, but think about my list or your list. You'll probably have Tim Duncan in there, and you'll have a spot for Larry Bird, and you'll have LeBron and Jordan and Kareem and Matt, and before you know it, there's not a spot for Wilt Chamberlain.
And Jory, is it just a situation where the further we get away from that era, the least likely we are to see that? And progressing even further, let's say 50 years from now, is it possible that we're going to see guys like Bird or Magic potentially fall off the list just because we're getting even further away from when they played, and you're going to have other guys that played in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, or today join the list, like Mo said. So it's just a natural consequence of time when it comes to a guy like Wilt Chamberlain. Jory, you are on mute.
But you're making a strong point.
But you made a strong point. Make it again.
It's like, it is like a consequence of time. Because, like, when you think about that time period, were there video cameras around to see highlights or anything? Because I don't know. You're talking about a time that's like the 60s, 70s, 50s. I don't know. Somewhere down that line. So, of course, as the time, like, as generations change, the players, of course, are going to, a lot of these players are going to like Wilt Chamberlain, because today they discredit him because of what Mo said, the type of talent that he played against. He did it in an era where there was no three ball, and he was playing against teachers and Walmart cashiers. So that's what they used to discredit him. And it's because we didn't physically see it. We weren't around to see it. So we couldn't judge it for ourselves. So in that type of, with that statement, yeah, it's because of the time and how far we are separated from it. That kind of makes it kind of, I don't want to say irrelevant, but it kind of falls off a lot. It's not irrelevant because you can't just drop 100 points in a game and not be relevant. But it was so long ago, and there's no video proof or anything, that we just chalk it up to, oh, he's not playing anybody or anything. So as the time goes on, yes, more players will start to fall off that type of ledge as the generations get newer. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. Look, Chris, to your point, there may come a time there'll be no Kareem in the top 10. That's not impossible. That's, that could be 20 years down the line, or 40. But at some point, you're going to be like, man, Kareem and Magic, they're still at number 15 and number, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to be in the 16s and 20s. That may very well happen. Look, some guys are so transcendent, they'll probably be in the top 10. I think for obviously decades, Russell has been in the top 10 primarily because he's the greatest winner in NBA history. And I think you've earned that kind of respect by being the greatest winner. I think by default, he should be in the top 10. Now, some people would argue, no, look at Wilt's numbers, and he's a greater individual player. I totally agree with that assessment, But I think people in this era, numbers have a role, but they do value winning more.
And it's interesting, Mo, because I mean, look at a smaller scale. Take a look at a player like an Allen Iverson. Those of us who watched Iverson play, which wasn't that long ago, in his prime, know the value that Allen Iverson brought to the floor. They know that he was a guy. And although, is he a top 10 greatest player of all time? I would say no. But if you look at what he did for the game, there's a group of people, a large group of people that have a lot of respect for Iverson's game and what he accomplished in the league. But you look at some of our young analysts today that maybe didn't see Iverson play or caught the tail end of Iverson's career, they don't view it that way. And they were alive when Iverson was playing. It's not like he was playing back in the 50s and 60s, but that's just a small example of someone that didn't even play that long ago. I mean, he was in the league, 15 or so years ago, and even him today, he's viewed a little differently. He's not viewed with the same cachet as other top 10 players that played during his time.
Great point.
So that's just on a smaller scale, an example of the further removed you get from these things, the more people not necessarily forget, but the perspective changes. And Jory, she is, in my opinion, she has an amazing basketball intellect, but
Agreed.
She is a younger basketball analyst. And she's right. She never saw Wilt Chamberlain play. And she takes on the same kind of mindset as a lot of our up-and-coming basketball analysts who are on ESPN and TNT today, where not only did they not see him play, they may not even know necessarily when they played. Because it's not relevant to what they're currently doing. They know everything there is to know about the current players, and they know everything
100%.
there is to know about the previous generation of players. And some of them even know the generation before that. And you're still not talking about Wilt. Today, the previous generation before that, you're still not mentioning Wilt Chamberlain. So, Jory, I fully agree with you. If you jump 3 generations ahead and now Wilt's 7 or 8 generations back, you're definitely not talking about him anymore. And it just naturally makes sense that more people are going to fall off the list that we have now as we add a few new ones on into the future. It's a really interesting way of looking at things.
And it's funny how you mentioned Allen Iverson, because I barely remember Iverson playing, because I was born in 2001. So I barely remember any of that.
Yeah, and like I said, he played within the last 2 decades. And you have people that love basketball will talk to you for days about Kobe and whatnot, but then you mention AI and they're like, oh, he was all right. He was all right. Wasn't he all right? He was all right, Bo.
Right.
Wasn't he all right?
Right. He was a little bit all right. Here's the thing, though. I think that's great. I think you bring up something that, to me, there's a way you can mend it. There's a gap between Jory and I, right? Obviously. But if we're on a panel together and we can have a fair discussion, because sometimes the discussions sway way to the left or way to the right on who's great or who isn't great, I can acknowledge how great and how special a lot of today's players are. I absolutely can. And the comparison thing is always hard because we always talk about the different eras. But I'm also one of those people that believe that the truly great players, I'm talking about the truly transcendent players. There are a lot of Hall of Famers. There are not a lot of transcendent players. The truly transcendent players would be great to me in any era. I was just joking with somebody the other day about what I thought Steph would do in a different era. And I said, in any era, he would still be the same great shooter. In any era, he's going to shoot the way he shoots. And we think of Steph as just a shooter, but he can actually put the ball on the floor and get to the basket and attack you with floaters and things of that nature. So he's more than just a shooter. Transcendent players. LeBron's going to be LeBron, and he's going to be great in any era. The only debate about how if they're great or not is how great would they be, but nobody debates their greatness. Steph changed the game. Chris, you brought it up. When you make your top 10, a lot of it has to do with people who changed the game. That cat literally changed the game. It is common now for guys to take 20-plus shots a game, and 11 of those 20 shots are threes. And that's common, and that's because of Steph Curry.
100%. Jory, before we get you out of here, we know. I mean, as Giannis bleeds green for the Bucks, you're bleeding for the Tennessee Titans. Give us real quick on your way out. What is your prediction for the Titans this season?
I believe that the division is going to be tight between us and Jacksonville. Like, if you know how the AFC or the NFC South works, you know that these teams always end up ruining each other's seasons later on down the road. However, so I am looking forward to that. But one thing I'm looking forward to my Titans is like my defensive line. It's going to be really good this year. My secondary should stay healthy, and with Treylon Burks coming back from injury by week 1, my wide receiver room should be, albeit patched up for right now.
I'm just hoping that King Henry is healthy the whole season, because if he's healthy the whole season, you guys are going to have a shot to make the playoffs.
I don't think he would. I think he'll stay healthy the whole season. He has a habit of, he's pretty good at taking care of himself. But the people like my running back 2 behind him, he's not that much. It's just like 1A and 1B. He's pretty good. Tyjae Spears, the one with no ACL, he's pretty good. I love him.
Well, Jory, always a pleasure having you here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, Mo, and now we are bringing on to the show. We got William coming in to talk a little bit NFL with us, Mo.
What's up, Will?
William?
How you guys doing this morning?
What's good, man?
Good to be here. Good to be here.
William, I don't know if you saw the Freddie earlier this week. I mean, I will see how you feel about it. He was rattling off his top quarterbacks, and we're going to start with Derek Carr. He said Derek Carr, top 10 quarterback. I know that you are a Saints guy, but you may not necessarily be a Derek Carr guy. But we'll see. Is Derek Carr, in your opinion, a top 10 quarterback right now?
I think it would be this year because the improvement of the team that he has around him. He has a good defense for the first time, if at all. His wide receiver room is going to be, maybe a little weaker because there's no Devontae Adams on this squad, but you still got a good receiver in Chris Olave. Hopefully get a healthy season out of Michael Thomas. Alvin Kamara come back after his suspension to be a check down guy from the backfield. Jimmy Graham, to my shock and dismay, looks like he's been resurrected and made the initial 53-man roster. I do have a couple of concerns with the Saints. They let go of Bradley Roby yesterday. Watch somebody in the division try to pick him up. You traded Will Lutz for. I hate to see Lutz go, but that's what the Saints do. They always get rid of a player early, a year early before he finally fades out in terms of performance. So, I just hate to see Roby go because if we have injuries in the secondary, he was part of the depth, and if we have injuries in the secondary, that's gonna hurt so bad. But I get it. They're still, the Saints are trying to get younger, save that money, so I get it. But I do think, getting back to Carr, I do think Derek Carr will be a top 10 quarterback this year, simply because of the weapons he has around him and and a better offensive line that the Saints have. I like to see a few more pieces, maybe at the left guard position. But other than that, I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback.
So, Will, let me follow up real quick before Chris gets in. Before this year, did you think he was a top 10 quarterback?
In terms of talent, yes, but not in terms of being part of that Raiders team, because that Raiders team, you had Josh Jacobs overperform last year. You had Devontae Adams come in to help out. But I always thought he was a talented guy. I always thought he was somebody who could make all the throws. He was just in a bad spot. And if you go back and look at it, that one productive year that he did have, he showed you what he could do. He already showed that. So yeah, he was a top 10 guy to me.
So this is where I'm at, and we all might differ on this opinion. I'm not arguing about the talent. I would just argue about how often have we seen it. And to me, for him to solidify being a top 10 quarterback, he needs to do what he's projected to do, and that's lead the Saints to winning this division. Anything less than that, and I don't think people should talk about him as a top 10 quarterback ever again.
He definitely got to get it done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not excusing that. He definitely has to get it done. He just has to
No,
go out there.
I'm just saying that there are other guys that are really talented. Maybe people want to attack them for various reasons, but Kirk Cousins has been really good. I know he hasn't won a title, but he's been really good for a long time.
But the thing with Kirk Cousins, I will say, sometimes Kirk Cousins can fade.
Sure.
If you go back and look at games, sometimes he can fade. And one day he looks like a world beater when he's going into Buffalo to beat the Bills. Next time he can look like trash when he plays against the Detroit Lions. He's not consistent enough to really be put in that spot. And that team around him, at least in past seasons, was pretty good.
Right, but
offensively.
I'm just saying, look at their resumes. Like if Cousins is not good enough to be in that spot, his resume is better than Carr's by far. He's been better than Carr by far. So I think that Kirk Cousins, for whatever reason, throughout his career, he's just low-hanging fruit to attack. Whereas in Carr's case, there's always an excuse. And I just think that this particular season, there are no excuses.
He has no excuse this season. None. He has to get it done. That is definitely true. He has to get it done. Look, because like I said, the whole defensive thing with the Raiders, yes, that's true. They never had a top 10 defense around him. But yeah, they have to, he has to come through this year. With that defense, that running game and that line, he has to come through this year. If he doesn't do what he needs to do this year, he's a failure, and he won't have that top 10 guy stigma with me anymore. Talent wise, I think he's always been there, but you got to do it. You got to perform on the field.
And I think one of the easiest ways that people defend Carr is they say, well, look at the Raiders. They're mismanaged. They're constantly on fire. The owner is kind of crazy. They had the John Gruden thing happen. They've never had a good defense. Their O-line is always suspect to average to below average. So I think a lot of times when people defend Derek Carr, their defense is, well, he was on the Raiders. I mean, come on now. I mean, that explains everything. And I get that to a certain extent. But like Will said, like, this isn't the Raiders. The Saints are one of the better, or I would argue top 5 run organizations in the NFL. So he has the support around him. He has the structure around him. He has the pieces around him on both sides of the ball. He is in the weaker conference. He is in a terribly weak division. And, we can say all we want to say about what Ritter might do, what Price might do. I don't want to hear that, guys. He has the runway laid out for him. It is all right in front of him.
It's up to him now.
It is. It's all him now.
I mean, because you got Chris. I mean, if you look at Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, A.T. Perry, even Kurtwood is a decent receiver. You have the pieces there to win and to show everybody that you are indeed that top 10 guy. So there's no excuse this year, none.
And if you look outside of Jalen Hurts, I don't think the Saints play a real quarterback this season. Like, I know they got Hurts on their schedule. They might have one more, like, top 10 or top 15 quarterback, but everyone else is middle to below average as far as quarterback is concerned.
You got Baker Mayfield twice. You got Ritter twice. So, you got Young twice.
I look at it as, I don't think Derek Carr has to throw for 40 touchdowns. I just think that with that defense and some of the playmakers he has, his job is not to turn the ball over.
I agree.
He didn't have to make the sensational play. He just needs to keep the chains moving. And like you said, don't make any stupid turnovers. Don't fumble the freaking football. And just go out there and play smart, heady football. That's all he needs to do. He didn't have to be the extraordinary. He didn't have to be the extravagant. Go out there and play football, hit your open man, make your reads, don't throw any interceptions. He'll be fine. He's got the receiving core and the tight end core to do it.
Now, Will, you mentioned the surprise release of Bradley Roby. Alontae Taylor is there, and he's getting all the talk in the wake of Roby's release. What are your thoughts on Taylor, and is he going to fill that role? Is it going to be as seamless as some Saint fans think, or are you a little concerned?
I'm a little concerned if he gets nicked up or if he get hurt because, again, Roby was the depth. But he has played well this preseason. He's learned a lot being a young player. I like him. I just hope he can stay healthy. That's the problem with the Saints secondary recent years, or the Saints period, is health. They have to be able to stay healthy, particularly back in that secondary now with a lot of your depth gone. And I just can't believe some of the stuff that they did. Look, scared money don't make no money, and I understand that. But come on, man, you mean to tell me a lot of let's for a rookie? That's hard for me to swallow. It's still hard for me to swallow. Cause I love Will. They haven't been the best the past 2 years, and his performance has gone down somewhere. And again, Saints like to get rid of players a year but ahead rather than a year behind. But for a rookie, I don't know. Because at some point you're gonna come down to close games, and you don't know how he's gonna perform in those close games.
Well, when you love a team, if you truly are committed to a team and you love that team, in your life, management is going to drive you crazy several times.
Yes.
Trust me.
And this is another move. I just don't get. And why we helping Sean Payton anyway?
Well, I think that's why. I think it was a favor.
The Denver Saints. They look like the Denver Saints. Who back in Adam Troutman's there. Will Lutz is there. Look, the Denver Saints. Come on, man.
I think Sean made a call and was like, guys, you're gonna get rid of him next year. Like, I'll give you someone right now for him. I'll help you out. You help me out. I'll help you out. If it wasn't Sean Payton, I don't think they make that move.
But the compensation was sick.
Yeah.
A 7th rounder? That's a thing of cookies and cheese doodles. Come on, man.
And we've seen, ask the Cleveland Browns, how was their rookie kicker last year? They just cut him because he was terrible. You don't know what you're going to get with rookie kickers.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
You don't know, and that's my concern. That was my concern. Sometimes it works out, but more than likely it don't.
So let's pivot to the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, he turned it up to another level yesterday, gentlemen, when he was like, I'm going to cut all my quarterbacks except for Mac Jones, and we're just going to roll with it. And then you have beat writers in New England trying to put the positive spin on it, being like, no. He did cut the entire quarterback room except for Mac Jones, but it's because we're going to sign him back on the practice squad. Okay. You still cut them. It's one thing to cut your 3rd string or 4th string quarterback and hope you can get him back on the practice squad. It's another thing when you cut every quarterback except for Mac Jones, who we're not even convinced that Bill Belichick likes because he keeps doing things to the offense to hinder Mac Jones. Right. So, Mo, what do you make of Bill getting rid of the quarterback room aside from Mac Jones?
It was as a surprise move after I seen this offseason, besides the Trey Lance trade. It was insane. But as soon as it happened, the first thing I thought of is, does that mean Colt McCoy gets a job now? Right? Like, I have to assume you're going to want somebody who is a capable backup. Is there any more capable backup, a guy that's been a backup for many years, but he seems to fit everywhere he goes, than Colt McCoy? So I thought instantly they're going to go get Colt McCoy. Now, after hearing what you said, that they plan on re-signing them to the practice squad, which is still funny in itself. I don't know if I'm those guys. I might be trying to look for employment somewhere else. The practice squad, like you're still going to have somebody right behind QB1. And you said it yourself. Belichick's not really crazy about his QB1. When you look at the moves he's made, he hasn't made moves that directly said, we're going to help you out, Mac Jones. We're going to get you this guy. We're going to get you that guy. We're going to give you more playmakers. Now, I've seen some of the additions that they've added, but look, Juju Smith-Schuster is a number 2 at best. And I think he's actually overrated. I think he's really a 3. So I'm not sure that's the playmaker that Mac Jones was looking for. New England still puzzles me. They've got a great defense. Nobody can tell me that Belichick doesn't know how to coach football, but some of the moves that he's making, they're kind of puzzling because you know that Mac Jones doesn't push the ball down the field, right? So I know they're going to try to rely on the run game. They do have talent at the run game. They just added Zeke, so they're going to have a veteran presence, a short yardage guy, great in pass protection, but you need playmakers on the outside to help out your quarterback, or at least a tight end that can hurt people in the seams. And they haven't really locked in on that position as well. So I'm looking at New England, and I think they'll be competitive because they always are. But I think if Patriot fans are thinking about making the playoffs, I don't think so.
And Will, Zappe started games last year. I think he actually won a game or two as a backup quarterback last year. And then their other quarterback, the rookie, I believe his name is Cunningham, he was impressing people. He's a hybrid. He's a quarterback / receiver, but he was impressing. I would argue he was probably the most impressive younger player in Patriots camp this preseason based on his athleticism and some of the plays that he was making. So Belichick turns around and he cuts a backup quarterback that was serviceable and won for you last season when Mac Jones wasn't there. And he cuts the most talked about player in Patriots camp in probably 2 or 3 seasons. What's he doing, Will?
Well,
Does he just not care?
Well, first of all, this tells you that there was actually no quarterback battle between Jones and Zappy. That's the first thing that tells you.
Right.
There was no quarterback battle there at all. Second, they don't think another team is going to snag Cunningham from him. So more than likely, they'll be able to sign him back. As far as Colt McCoy is concerned, I wouldn't be surprised if Colt McCoy makes this team. I would not be surprised if they bring him in, sign him on a 1 year, $5-6 million to sit on the bench. That's some good money to sit on the bench. But I'll sit on the bench for that much money. 5-6, a couple of hits in there. I'll do that for $5-6 million. But I just think that, and this is one of the few times, and y'all can mark it down. Freddie's in the chat. What's up, Freddie? This one time me and him agree. It's time for Bill to go. It's time for him to go. He doesn't seem to have an offensive direction for this team, and he's been lost since Brady left. And he has no offensive direction, no quarterback that can push it down, that can push the ball down the field, no wide receiver that can really get down the field. Because I agree with you, Mo. I think Juju is more of a third receiver than he is a number 1 receiver. So, in terms of personnel on the offensive side of the ball, no. That right there in itself tells you it's time for Bill to go. It's time. Defensively, he's solid as anybody. That defense is solid in New England. I'll give him that. But the offensive side of the football is in shambles right now.
I'm going to take it a different way. I'm going to say maybe Bill knows exactly what he's doing. Because of this, maybe in his mind, you don't need a backup quarterback because nothing's going to happen to Mac Jones when he's handing the ball off 40 times.
This is true.
Bill, I really think he is going to run the ball down the throat of every team he faces this season, or do his best to try to do so. And Mac Jones ain't going to be back there dropping back 3-step, 5-step drops. It's going to be screen passes. It's going to be a quick play action. Mac Jones isn't going to get hit in Bill's mind because he's only going to be passing the ball 15, 20 times a game. So in his mind, maybe he's like, I don't need a backup on the roster. Let me get an extra roster spot for someone else because we're not passing the ball this season. So Mac's going to be fine. Unless he hurts himself in the shower or something, we're not going to need anybody.
I just think that it's going to come back to bite you with that play calling because teams more or less are going to start playing you with an 8-man front. And when you go against a real good defensive team, particularly in that division, Dolphins have a solid defense. The Jets have a solid defense. And when they play 8-man front, they can come after you. So at some point, it's going to bite you in the butt if that's what he wants to do. I was never a fan of Mac Jones at Alabama. So a change would definitely have to be done at some point, I think, for the Patriots to find success once again. He's been lost since Brady's been gone. And I'll keep saying that till I'm blue in the face. He's been lost since Brady's been gone.
Also in the AFC East, gentlemen, we have the Buffalo Bills. It was announced yesterday that Von Miller is starting the season on the PUP list, which means that he is going to miss the first 4 games. Those 4 games include the Jets, the Raiders, the Commanders, and the Dolphins. Now, I'm not concerned about the Raiders and the Commanders games for Buffalo. Maybe I should be a little more concerned about the Commanders. I think they might do some things this season. I think Buffalo is going to steamroll the Raiders. But Will, if you're a Buffalo fan, it's not ideal to play the Jets and the Dolphins early in the season without Von Miller, with everything else that's been happening in the offseason with your offense and all the expectations on Josh Allen, and another year without Dable. Drip, drip, drip. All these kind of little leaks are happening in Buffalo. is Von Miller kind of the thing that could push it over the edge, and we could see Buffalo start 2-2 or 1-3, or is the defense good enough to overcome for the first 4 games?
They need Von back badly. They need him. They really need Von. They really need him back badly. I just think that with the offensive issues that they have, I still don't trust that running game. I don't know if Josh Allen's gonna keep doing his thing. If they're gonna give Damian Harris carries, if they're gonna give James Cook carries, what are they gonna do? I don't know what they do with that. Stephon Diggs is gonna get a lot of targets.
All the targets. He wants all of them.
The targets.
Every target will.
But I think, you gotta look at your tight end spot too, because Knox is gonna get some run. Kincaid's gonna get some run. I like Kincaid. He's gonna get some run. So, but that defense, you got to have him back there. You got to, because that defense is gonna start. They might go 2-2. They might get the Raiders. They might get the Commanders. But against the Jets, a team who just got Aaron Rodgers, who I think would be a better real-life quarterback than a fantasy quarterback, with his reworked receiver core and everything they're doing, with Breece Hall, who should be back, man, they need that defense to be at its best, because those two teams are going to be on full cylinders. But in Miami, they're going to be spectacular as long as Tua can stay healthy. That's going to hurt. That defense needs to be at its best. And if it's not, they're going 2-2.
Mo, and it's, again, I say it till I'm blue in the face. Josh Allen is a roller coaster. It's literally ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. And the way this season is setting up, Mo, it might be a roller coaster ride for Buffalo. I can see them losing week 1 to Aaron Rodgers. Once you lose in your division to the Jets, who are supposed to be a playoff contending team, now you're like, oh crap, we're down a division game. We're 0-1. The Jets are 1-0. Buffalo will rebound, right? They'll beat the Raiders. Maybe they win a close game with the Commanders. That's a little closer than we thought it was going to be. But now they're 2-1. Well, what if they go to Miami and they lose to Miami? Now you're 2-2. You're 0-2 in your division.
Right.
And now where are we? Because I don't think that's good for them. If they start off 2-2, but they lose both their division games, you still almost have to look at it like, are we the 3rd best team in this division now? Because we lost to Miami and the Jets. We beat up a crappy Raider team. We beat up the Commanders, who most are projecting to finish 3rd or 4th in their division. Well, if they start off 2-2 and lose both division teams, that's not the look they want either, though, correct?
It's not. This is a team that still has Super Bowl aspirations. This is a team that a lot of people still project to win this division. I don't, but a lot of people still project them to win the division. Don't forget, this defense last year was 2nd in the league in points against. So it's a good defense. They have talent on the defensive side of the football, but Von Miller is the guy that, even at this advanced age, is still a tough matchup. His first 2 steps off the ball, it's very few guys can match that. Von Miller is one of those athletes that's going to age great, like Julius Peppers. Julius Peppers was an impact player into his late 30s. I think Von Miller is that kind of guy. He's going to be one of those kind of guys. Remember, he only played 11 games last year, had 8 sacks. Definitely was on pace to have double-digit sacks again. He's that much of an impact player. So to me, it is a concern, because as a matchup, I'm just talking about as an individual matchup up front, he's the only guy that's an individual matchup when it comes to like protecting your quarterback. His speed, his ability to get around the corner and diagnose plays, they're going to miss that enormously. And I know it's only 4 games in, but like you said, Chris, it's very possible that they could go 2-2. And if you go 0-2 in that division, which is going to be a lot tougher than it's ever been. Look at that division top to bottom. That's a problem. And now you're adding additional pressure to Josh Allen, who we know, if there's too much pressure on his shoulders, it makes him start forcing passes. You already have a wide receiver that wants 200 targets anyway. You already have that. So he's going to be forcing the ball to that guy anyway. But if they get down in their division, it could get ugly. I'm not going to say something crazy like they won't make the playoffs, But you make a good point. If they do end up being the third best team, as good as that division is, 3 teams are not going to make the playoffs.
I just think too. That's
agree.
when the running game comes into play, because you're saying when he feels pressured, he's going to throw some picks. That's when I think that running game really is going to come into play. And you also going to have to look at the fact that you're going to have to expand that playbook more. Stefan's going to have to make a sacrifice at some point, because you have to get Gabe Davis involved. You have to get Kincaid involved. Knox will catch a few passes here and there. James Cooks can come out the backfield and catch some passes and make something happen. But at some point, you just can't be looking eyes straight down at Stephon Diggs. You can't. You have to make changes. You have to make that adjustment in order to be effective. Gabe Davis is more than capable. Kincaid is more than capable, even as a rookie. Knox is more than capable to come through with a couple of catches here and there and throw in some key blocks. They're gonna have to open that thing up to more personnel, and Stephon's gonna have to just get over it. Look, I'd rather win, go to the playoffs, be a Super Bowl contender year after year after year than me getting 100 catches and how many yards? Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to get that Super Bowl ring, and that should be your high priority. And if that means sacrificing a little bit to open up your teammates and open the offense more to go down there and beat these teams, then it's more than worth it.
Run the football.
Not with Josh Allen. Not with Josh Allen.
Not with Josh Allen. No.
Yeah. Let me please add that in. Not with Josh Allen.
Not with Josh
I don't want Josh Allen rushing for 700 or more yards this season.
Because that's what they're going to do.
That's right, Anthony Price. Gabe Davis needs to step up big time and say, look, I'm open. Stop looking at this dude. Come over here. Look to the other side of the field. I'm open.
Maybe that's a wide receiver thing, because Diggs is like, I'm always open.
Always open. And option 1 is going to be Diggs. Option 2 is going to be run the ball. And option 3 is going to be when I take off to run, if there's people there, then can I toss it somewhere real quick to whoever that second option is? And that's where we get into trouble. But I would even argue this, guys. I would argue maybe he needs a quality slot receiver. Maybe that's something that would benefit Josh Allen's game. And I agree. Gabe Davis needs to step up into that number 2 role. But if he stays the inconsistent version of Gabe Davis that we saw last year, because he had highs and lows last year. So if he continues that this year, maybe what they're missing is that Cole Beasley type role. And obviously Cole Beasley is past where he needs to be in the NFL. But that Cole Beasley, Wes Welker, that slot guy really does fit into what Allen does well. And as Diggs is open every single time he goes down the field, because according to him, he is blowing the top off the defense. You need that slot guy coming in underneath and doing business. And like Anthony Price said, maybe that is going to be Kincaid this year. We don't know. But if Josh Allen can develop a quality slot receiver, even if his number 2 is inconsistent, that's going to change the entire look of the offense.
It would. It changes everything. It also opens up the offense, because a good slot receiver is going to move the chains. You're going to move the chains. You're going to be great on third down. If you've got a great slot receiver that can beat one-on-one coverage, which they will receive, or find those pockets in the zone, it's going to change the whole offense. So I'm with you. If they've got somebody on that roster that can be an effective slot receiver, Buffalo's offense is going to open up completely, because like you said, Diggs is going downfield. He's either running a 9 route or a deep seam or a deep curl route, but he's not catching anything short. So the middle of the field is going to be wide open for somebody.
And if Josh Allen keeps being Josh Allen and being, 50% in the middle of the field when he's under pressure, what's going to happen? We're going to come back to the sidelines and we're going to see Diggs doing this. A lot of this, because he was open down the field and you threw an incomplete 8-yard crossing route, and Diggs ain't going to like that.
I'm not so sure that even if the slot receiver catches the touchdown pass, Diggs is not going to go, I was open. You didn't see it, but I was open, just so you know.
Guys, Jake Browning, if you don't know the name, you might need to know the name, because he is the gentleman who won the backup quarterback job in Cincinnati, beating out Trevor Siemian. And one of the things that we're not really talking about is Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow going to play week 1? Everyone's saying he is. Everyone's saying Burrow is on track to play week 1, and maybe he is. But people are also talking about how he's not walking right now, not because he can't, but because he's trying to speed up the recovery process from his calf strain. He's not practicing. He's not walking around the calf right now because he's doing everything that he can do to be ready for week 1. Will, if he's not there week 1, how much of an issue is this? Is it just we missed week 1, he's back week 2, or are you more concerned than that?
I'll be more concerned for the rest of the. I'll be more concerned not only just for week 1, but the rest of the season. Part of his game is running the football. When he I mean, don't get me wrong, he'll throw the ball downfield more to a very set of receivers than Josh Allen would, but a lot of his game is predicated off the run. So if you can't run the football, you turn him into a pocket passer at that point. And not to say he can't do it, because that's what I'm looking for as a fantasy owner, for him to get back in that pocket and throw more touchdown. But part of his game is also running the football. When push comes to shove. And if you're not walking right now and you're not coming out there in week 1, something wrong.
Mo, are you concerned? Do you think it's just maybe he misses week 1, he's back week 2? How long do you see this being a talking point for Burrow this season?
If I'm a Bengals fan, or if I'm in that locker room or that coaching room, I'm concerned. This is my franchise quarterback. This is the most important player in my franchise. This is arguably, here's the crazy part. It's early in his career. It's very early. But he's on a path already to being the greatest quarterback in Bengals history. I'm just saying. I'm just being real. And I hope, as a fan, it's just a calf. I really do. I hope it's just a calf. But like you said, if he's not really walking, and you're not really testing it either. You're not running. You have to test it, right, to be ready. And if you're not really testing it, I don't see you showing up week 1 ready to play. That just doesn't make sense. So I'm very concerned, because week 1 could turn into week 2, and this is a team that's projected to win 12 to 13 games, be a legit contender to be in that AFC title game. And with the loaded AFC, with the quarterbacks that we have out there, you don't want to be the Bengals and get off to a slow start. But more importantly, you don't want to have one of those seasons where when Joe Burrow does play, he kind of stays banged up throughout the season, right? That the calf is a consistent problem. And maybe it's not just a calf. Again, I'm a fan. I hope it's just a calf, because if it proves to be more than that, you know what I'm talking about. Now we're talking about something major. So I think as an organization, I will give Joe whatever amount of time he needs to feel 100%.
Brandon, what's up, man?
So
I think another thing too that sort of kind of sticks a little concern out on me. Chase's performance depends on Burrow. So if Burrow is down, what does that mean for the performance to how Jamar Chase does? Because then you go to your backup quarterback who really didn't have that consistency with Chase. So that's going to hurt with Chase and Higgins. That's going to hurt in both ways. And now you depend more on Joe Mixon. And I don't know if I want to depend more on Joe Mixon or not.
I would say that
guy.
With those receivers, with the talent they have, what it means is their yards per catch is probably going to come down about 3 or 4 yards. Now you're looking at Jamar Chase averaging about 11 yards a catch. Because
that means your big play potential is cut in half.
Sure. I agree 100%. Nobody wants Joe Burrow on the sidelines.
No.
But if he's not right, you don't play him. I know you don't want to catch up those L's and rack up those L's, but you're not risking your future if he's not 100%.
This is true. But that division has improved, and that's a concern. Cleveland appears to be better. I'm not high on Watson, but other people are. The Steelers with Kenny Pickett. Lamar looks like he's going to be the truth of that revamped team. Shout out to Zay Flowers. That boy looking good in camp. That boy looking good. So that's my concern. They're going to have to hit the ground running, because that division, they're going to continue to beat each other up. So Burrow has to be ready for that.
And guys, like you said, if let's say he plays week 1, He plays week 1, and it's just a nagging injury. Well, we all know what nagging injuries look like in the NFL. And we all know if you have a leg injury, that affects everything you do, not just running the ball. It's how you throw the ball. If you don't have that foundation where you can plant yourself and let it rip, and now you're taking the deep ball out of the arsenal, or the deep ball isn't as deep as it could be, like you said, Will, if you're now you're going to limit Chase, now you're going to limit Higgins. Now you're bringing now instead of the offense being, a 60, 70-yard offense down the field, now we're scaling it back a little bit. So now you're helping out the defense. So it's a snowball effect. So I hope he's good to go week 1. I don't know why more people aren't talking about it, because it doesn't look like he's going to be 100% week 1. And to your point, there are no breaks in that division this year. I also am not high on Deshaun Watson, but the Browns have a great defense. Yep. So whether or not Deshaun's going to score enough points, that's here nor there. But that defense is going to get after you. The Steelers' defense is going to get after you. The Ravens'
they're going to be healthy, and that defense is going to come into to be healthy this season. So this season for the Steelers, they're going to be healthy.
The Ravens' defense, I'm a little iffy on, but Lamar's going to score points. So even if the Ravens' defense isn't coming after you, can you put up 30, 40 points if Lamar's going off? So these are all things you have to ask yourself. In the chat, Anthony Price mentioned.
What?
Braden's calling out Deshaun Cosby.
But I just think right now, man, he needs to come back. He really does. He's the heart and soul of that team. And they've gone through some losses too. Shamaji Piran's gone to the Broncos.
Piran's a good player.
So they've gone through some changes too, personnel wise. So again, he needs to come back, man. That's the heart and soul of that team. If you send him out for those four games, that's gonna hurt.
So in the chat, we have Anthony Price saying the Vikings cutting Jalen Reagor. Can we see him on the Bills? I'll let both of you respond to this in a second, but my response is no. And here's why. The Bills have had opportunities to sign a number 2 receiver. And for whatever reason, whether it be money, they wanted too much money, they picked another team over Buffalo. I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons. I personally think they don't want to deal with the headache of Diggs. If you bring in an Odell Beckham, for example, who there was a lot of talk about Odell and Buffalo, and maybe Buffalo didn't want to pay him what Baltimore paid him. Obviously, we don't know that information. But if you ask me, if you brought Odell into Buffalo, Diggs is on another level. Because
he raising Kane.
Another level. Because right away, Odell needs the ball, and Odell is going to be the guy to tell Diggs, sit down. This is I've been around the block. I know how an offense runs. I'm going to get mine. You're going to get yours. And if you're not doing enough with yours, I need more too. And that's 2 alphas in the wide receiver room. And I think Buffalo was like, no, we don't want to deal with that headache. So, Will, I don't think Buffalo's going to bring in someone that's a distinct number 2, because they think it's going to cause an issue with Stephon.
But see, the thing about it is, at some point, you're going to have to bite the bullet and deal with it, because that's what your team needs right now to succeed. You're going to have to bite the bullet and just deal with it. And I blame the Vikings, really, because the Vikings, they had Thielen there, but I sort of kind of blame the Vikings for it. And then for that trade, they traded them. I don't know if it was just they can be quiet or out of respect. I'm not sure. But at some point, Diggs gonna have to just step back, shut up, and just accept it, because that's what you need to win. You just can't be the focal point. Case in point, look at the Eagles. AJ Brown can say the same thing. I'm open, but does AJ do that? No. And you look at Devontae Smith be successful, Dallas Goedert be successful. They spread it around.
And the first guy to cheer them is AJ Brown.
Yeah. You look at AJ and say, "Hey, I got all the talent in the world. Throw it to me. I'm always open." But no, they go to Devontae Smith. They go to Dallas Goedert. Before he got traded, they were going to Miles Sanders. So at some point, you're gonna have to get over yourself and accept the fact that you need help, and that team needs a definite second receiver.
Mo, is any of this on the quarterback? Is any of this on Josh Allen to pull Diggs aside? And maybe he has, we don't know. But is any of this on him to be like, listen, do your job. I will get you the ball when I can get you the ball, when it is most beneficial to the offense and most beneficial to the team. but I'm not going to look at you every single time because we have other guys in this team that need to eat. We have other guys in this team that we need to have invested in the game so that they can get targets and they can get receptions and they can help us win. Because what happens, Mo, if they double team him, which a lot of teams do, now what? Josh is going to, and he does this. We've seen him do it. He forces throws into double coverage. And sometimes Diggs makes a phenomenal play and, he's all hyped about it. And other times it gets picked off or it's incomplete because he's thrown into double coverage. So is it on Allen at all to kind of be like, just shut up and do what you got to do? Because he's done it subliminally. He's come out this preseason and said things like, this receiver's looking really good. He just puts his head down and does his job. And people are like, oh, who isn't doing their job, Josh? Right. Who isn't just putting their head down? Like, we know who you're talking about. But is it on him to kind of reel Diggs in and kind of set the tone? Or is it a lose-lose situation for him?
So I think it's on him because I think he needs to point out to Diggs, if I can get production from the other guys, if they're playing well, if they're running their routes and they're impacting the game, they actually make the game easier for Diggs. If Gabe Davis is not inconsistent but playing at a high level, if you're getting production from the tight end, it makes it harder to double team Stephon Diggs. He needs to understand that you can eat more if these guys play well, if these guys are productive. There's a big picture aspect to this that Josh Allen, if he hasn't already pointed out, needs to point out to Stephon Diggs. We can win a Super Bowl and you can still get your numbers, but you can do it within the concept of the team. Other guys are going to be productive. Other guys are going to put up numbers. There was a time in the playoffs, we all remember that playoff game. Gabe Davis looked like the number one receiver. The guy had over 200 yards, multiple touchdowns. Like he looked like the clear number one, and nobody was more miserable than Diggs. You have to celebrate your teammates stepping up and doing their thing. It's okay, man. It really is. Everybody knows that he's the number one receiver. Everybody knows that he's one of the better receivers in the National Football League. But he seems like one of those guys that needs to constantly be reaffirmed of how great he is or how good he is. And that's not necessary. If you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you got to roll and root for your teammates just as much as you root for yourself. And if Josh Allen isn't talking to him that way, isn't pointing that out to him, he needs to.
Can we call Diggs, and I hate to say this because it's an old school term, but can we call Diggs a diva?
100%.
Oh yeah.
100%. When you're getting double the amount of targets as the next player on your team, and you're still saying feed me more, what are we doing? Like you're not making AFC Championship games. You're not getting to the Super Bowl. You're already the focal point of the team, and you think feeding you more is going to help the cause any? So I definitely think we can call him that. And gentlemen, let's pivot to this to close out the show. We got two defensive players who are still holding out. We got Kansas City with Chris Jones, and we got the 49ers with Nick Bosa. Will, do you see, and Jones has already said he's comfortable holding out till week 8. He is comfortable missing half the season. Now, players say things. We all know that. But he has already put into the air he is good until week 8, and he will revisit the situation then and see how he feels about life. Bosa hasn't talked as much. The comments that he's made have all, been the generic, we're going to get something worked out, trust the process, yada, yada, yada. Will, how concerned are you for the Chiefs and for the 49ers? Do you see these actually being long holdouts, or do you think they're going to play early on this season?
I see Chris Jones just being a long hold out. He knows how important he is to that squad. So I see that being a long hold out there. I truly believe that he will be set for to do this until week 8 and possibly longer. I do see him do that because he knows how important he is to his team. Bosa, on the other hand, I think he, being a younger player, I think he would want to get something done to be out there with his teammates. He hadn't been in the league nowhere near as long as Chris Jones has. So I think that he will be willing to get something done soon to get out there with his teammates. But I think Chris Jones, he's the real deal. He's willing to sit this thing out week 8, week 9, week 10. Just to prove a point. how important that he truly is, because that defense is going to be remarkably different without him. So I think just for that alone, just to prove a point, he'll sit out week 8, week 9, week 10. But I think Nick Bosa, being a younger player and want to be out there with his teammates, I think he'll get something done soon.
Will, how many games do the Chiefs have to lose early for them to be like, all right, it's over. We'll pay you. What do you want? Come home to us. We need you.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, looking at that schedule, how many games overall they could lose. I mean, right now, looking at the schedule, what, maybe 5 that they lose overall? Maybe. And I don't know. I don't know.
Mahomes has already won a Super Bowl without receivers, so you know.
Yeah. And you
never
don't have
win one without a defense, without a star defensive end. I'm just saying.
you got to have him back, particularly for the games that you can lose. So you got to have him back. And there's maybe 5 games on that schedule that they can lose. And with their question at receiver, you need to be solid at defense.
Agreed.
I'm still not a big, huge believer in Kadarius Toney, because he hadn't stayed healthy enough to do it. I'm still not a big fan of Sky Moore because he's still living off potential. So we have to see what the Chiefs can do. But I think Chris Jones is going to be the one to hold out, and they're going to need him, because you do have at least five teams on that schedule that can beat you.
So, gentlemen, if you take a look at the Chiefs' schedule, they open with the Lions and the Jaguars and the Bears. Nothing too crazy in there. I think the Jaguars, even though they might be a favorite to win their division, they're not in the Chiefs, league. So
I will say this. I do want to say this though, with the signing of Calvin Ridley, I think that's going to change life for Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne is going to have another season under his belt, so I wouldn't be surprised. And that defense is coming along fine. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a loss.
Now, when you hit October, here's the Chiefs' schedule starting in October. You got the Jets, which who knows? You got the Vikings. Okay, they're a quality team from the NFC. You got the Broncos, division game. Division games can get wild. Followed by the Chargers, division game. Followed by the Broncos again, division game. Then you got the Dolphins. Then you got the Eagles. That's a stretch. That's the hardest stretch of their division, of their schedule.
That Dolphins game, you're going to need them. That Eagles game, you're going to need them.
I mean, and those are all in the first 8 to 10 games of the season.
Yeah.
So if he's missing that entire stretch of games, there's a couple losses that could pop up in there where it could. They're not going to miss the playoffs. Let's not be crazy.
No.
But there's a couple of losses in there where maybe they're not the 1 seed. Maybe they lose enough games where they're not getting the bye. And now that could impact them down the road. So I think it's something Kansas City needs to kind of monitor as far as what their defense looks like early on in the season.
Hey, the man.
Well, they should have already done that, Will. They should have done that a month ago.
100%.
But apparently we're playing semantics right now. If you know you're going to pay him anyways, does it matter if you pay him now or you pay him 2 months from now?
You're going to give the man that money, man. Y'all need to stop tripping.
Stop it. Get some help.
They need to stop. Just pay that man. He is too important to your team. And your team is already at a flux on offense. You need to be solid on defense.
Mo, you're a Niners fan. How concerned are you about Bosa?
Look, we have more overall talent defensively than the Chiefs do. But Bosa's a special guy with his speed. We can play him on both sides. He just impacts the game in so many ways. But I'll say this. He's not a veteran like Jones is, but he's an arrogant guy. He is. He's a cocky, arrogant guy. I don't think he's going to be seduced by the idea, like, I really want to join my teammates. Bosa's thinking about Bosa. Bosa's not. I think he might hold out as long as Jones is. My guess is John Lynch caves, and he gives him what he wants, and he probably should anyway. John Lynch will cave. The defense needs to actually be better than they were last year, because I do think the offense is going to get off to a slow start this year. So you need your playmakers on defense, and it starts with Bosa. So I think John Lynch caves. But if you're talking about would Bosa be willing to miss time, with no question. Remember, look at it this way. he's much younger than Chris Jones. He can lose more. He can afford to lose the time that Chris Jones can, right? That's just a reality. So I actually think Bosa is as serious as Jones is. So as a Niners fan, I'm very concerned.
As much
So
as
you
I
see
think
Brock,
the
so you,
Chiefs
so you
should
see regression.
pay,
So you see a regression in Brock Purdy, assuming he starts week 1.
I don't want to use the word regression. Let's just say that I think that there's film on him now. Teams are going to recognize what he does well, what he doesn't do well. They will attack him differently. So, do I expect him to go in and start off this season 8-0 and running like he did last year? Realistically, I don't. I think we're going to be solid, but I don't know if I don't. Let me put it this way. Let's shorten it this way. I don't see him as a franchise quarterback. I see him
That's
as a
fair.
capable. I see him as a capable quarterback, a game manager, if you will.
fair. That's
But
fair.
I don't see him as a franchise. And if the guy proves me wrong, that's great.
That's
But
fair.
that's not what I see when I look at Brock Purdy.
Let me
as
ask you this:
much-
Would you rather have him or Geno?
Well,
Ooh.
I mean, am I going to get Geno from last year, or am I going to get Geno for most of his career? If that's the case, I'll just keep Purdy.
Geno from last year.
Then I would take Geno. If we had
Interesting.
Geno from last year, I mean, we might be in the Super Bowl.
That's fair. That's fair. As much as the Chiefs should pay Chris Jones, that's how much more the Niners should pay Bosa. You're not paying your quarterback. When you are not paying your quarterback, pay the pieces around him while you can. Because we've seen it. Once you pay your quarterback, you got to stop paying other people.
Yep.
So it's even less excusable for the Niners not to pay Bosa when you're not paying Purdy anything for the next few years. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing.
I still say the Cowboys came out good by getting Cooks and Gilmore this season. I know you was able to do it because his money last year wasn't that much, but now his contract's done kicked into effect. So we're gonna see what Dallas can do once that starts making this bigger money on the contract.
Everybody's in love with Brandon Cooks. Let me ask you guys something. Why do you think Brandon Cooks moves around so much if he's this great player? Like,
hold on.
There's a reason why he moves around.
I now realize that because he was a Saint. So I realized that his attitude is jacked up.
Terrible.
For all the athleticism and everything that he has as a second receiver, it's his attitude and his ego that's jacked up. He actually got mad last year as a Texan that people got traded before him.
Yep.
Come on, man.
He wanted out first.
Yeah, he wanted out first. So it's his attitude that messes up. But I just think that from a talent standpoint, to be with Dak, I still got to wait to see what McCarthy does with that offense. But talent-wise, but if he comes out, calls the right plays, Dak can get him in the football. I mean, because you got Cooks playing with trash over with the Texans. Not seeing playing time, but when he was still somewhat effective. Now with Dak, you got to assume with a better quarterback, he will be more and better play calling. Cooks can do some things with CeeDee Lamb on the other side. So yeah, I do expect Cooks to do something because I don't believe in Michael Gallup at all.
As long as Cooks understands he is wide receiver 2.
Yep.
Now, his issue in the past has been he's got wide receiver 1 juice and swagger, but he's not wide receiver 1. And I get it. What he was in Houston by default because there was nobody on that team. So I get that perspective, but he's not. He is a quality 2, and if he can accept that role, you're right, Will. That Dallas offense is going to be dangerous, assuming Mike McCarthy can play call correctly.
Yes.
That's the big if.
Yes.
That is the big if in Dallas.
That's the biggest if. That's the biggest if. And I don't know if he can, but talent-wise, ooh.
And I agree
I'm not
with
a
you.
Cowboys.
Gallup is not a 2.
I'm not a Cowboys fan at all, and I can't stand Michael Gallup. But CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks, 2 proven talents, right play calling, they might be able to get it done.
But I think you hit it, Will. If you put Gallup at 3, that might be where he's supposed to be, right? If the other 2 guys are taking all the pressure off, it should give him more opportunities to work the middle of the field. He should be a more productive player as a 3.
Yep.
I will say this, though. I don't like losing Dalton Schultz for the
I don't
Cowboys.
like it either. Because
Dak
it takes
loves
away,
him.
It takes away Dak's security blanket.
Yep. Yep, that's going to hurt them. I'm not a fan of that. I think that hopefully Dak develops rapport, not with one of the other guys, not Cooks, not CeeDee Lamb early. Maybe Gallup becomes that guy. Maybe whoever's the tight end right now becomes that guy. But he needs a blanket. He needs
Another
a
thing that
blanket.
predicates all this too. Can Pollard hold up to be a full-time running back? Can he hold up? Can he hold up for 250, 300?
I don't think he's that
carries?
kind of back. He's not going to get that many carries. That's not what
I
he
don't think
does.
he will either. I think they split it up.
They got that back. What's his name? Deuce Vaughn.
Deuce Vaughn. So I think they split it up. I really think they split it up because I don't think he's that dude that can handle all those carries.
And let's be honest. I mean, not many of those guys exist in the league today.
True.
Outside of King Henry, are there any other of those backs right now?
Not really.
Maybe Nick Chubb.
Maybe Nick Chubb. Saquon if he stays healthy, but you don't want Saquon carrying the ball that much.
No.
But Saquon will probably tell you he's that guy.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, absolute pleasure this morning. What a way to start off your hump day. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Anthony was bringing it strong this morning. Brandon was bringing it strong this morning. Freddie was in there earlier. We had Jory on the first segment. Will coming up later on to wrap up the show and talk some football with us. Will, we're going to let you close it out. 20 seconds, whatever you want to talk about, the floor is yours.
I just want to say real quick, I'm looking forward to one heck of a football season, both college and pro. It's going to be a little bit different this year. I think we'll get some different stars that come through. I want to see what happens with the Jonathan Taylor situation. I want to see what happens with Josh Jacobs. Will he be able to repeat what he did last season? So this is going to be a hell of a season and it should be fun.
And in the chat, hey, show some love to Dez. Dez says that TCU versus Colorado will be the butter and popcorn this week. Will, who do you got in that game, TCU or Colorado?
As bad as I want to go for Colorado, I got TCU. I don't think that Deion has it yet, but I don't think he has it yet. But I think TCU is going to come in there with a little something to prove.
I'm rooting for Colorado, but I think TCU wins.
Yeah,
I'm the same boat, guys. I think TCU wins going away in the second half. I think it's competitive in the first half. I think we see some stuff from Colorado, but I think over the haul, the entire game, TCU is just the better team, and you're going to see them kind of pull away end of the third quarter, fourth quarter. But gentlemen, pleasure as always. Thank you to everyone who was in the comments today, everyone who was in the chat, everyone who was following us here, Sports Empire Network. Make sure you are checking out all of the content that the network has to offer. We'll be back here tomorrow morning, same time, Coffee and Sports, the morning show with Chris and Mo. Thank you once again to our guests today, Will and Jory. Gentlemen, until we meet again.
Thank you.